Namaskar everyone and welcome to the Gita Satsang for today. So let us start with the Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Gita Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatah Kleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namostu Te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagyabhushanam Srimad-Venkatanathāryam Vande Vedanta-Deshikam Yo Nityamachyutapadambujayugma-rukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadgurur-Bhagavatosya Dayaika-Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye. So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us take up our shloka for today. So we had stopped with the 29th shloka in the previous satsang. Today we are going to take up shloka number 30. So in this, Krishna is telling Arjuna and summarizing what all he should actually be thinking about when he is doing karma, when he is doing any actions. So in 30th shloka, Krishna says, Mai sarvani karmani samyasyadhyatmachetasa nirashirnirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. Performing all work, all actions as an offering unto me, constantly meditate on me as the Supreme, become free from desire and selfishness, and with your mental grief departed, fight. So Krishna is telling Arjuna how he should have the attitude to be ready to fight. So he says, whatever actions you are doing, sarvani karmani, all your actions, offer them unto me. And always you keep thinking of me as the Supreme Lord. And without desire and without selfishness. Nirashir nirmamo bhutva. And with all grief departed from you, with no grief in your mind, O Arjuna, you fight. So what is Krishna trying to point out here? So he says, leave everything aside. All your thoughts, you give up all that, all your calculations about whether it is right, it is wrong, I am killing my own people, my own relatives. You leave aside all that. Whatever I am telling you to do, I am telling you to fight. So whatever action you are going to do for that fight, you surrender all that to me and accept that I am the one who is doing all this. So in the previous satsang, we have seen that even the Vedas tell that it is the Jivatma who is the Karta. The Jivatma is the one who is the doer. That is the reason why when the Vedas are telling instructions, they are telling this Jivatma, you should do like this, you should behave like this, this is something which is good for you, you should not be doing these actions, these are bad for you, and so on. So if the Vedas are instructing the Jivatma, then it is understood that this instruction is coming because the Jivatma has jnana. The Jivatma has knowledge. Jivatma has the ability to understand what is being instructed. And so it is useful to tell the Jivatma that do this, don't do this, and so on. So if the Jivatma has jnana, that is definitely good, because with that jnana only that Jivatma is going to understand and start practicing the actions. However, there is one flip side to this. There is a danger in this. Because the Jivatma has jnana, he very soon starts believing that I am the one, I am getting the jnana, I am the one who is doing this. And the thought comes that I am an independent entity. I am Swatantra. Whereas in reality, it is not only because of the jnana of the Jivatma that he is doing actions. We have seen in the previous satsang that the gunas have to also be there, right? The sense organs, the body has to also cooperate. And the Paramatma within the Jivatma has to also motivate those particular actions. So this jnana which the Jivatma has is good because it will allow the Jivatma to do sadhana. But again, this has the danger that because the Jivatma has jnana, at the very starting initial stages, this Jivatma will believe that I am the doer. And that is the sense of ahankara, that I am the doer. And that gives this feeling of swatantra. Now, just here the acharyas explained to us, let us say Arjuna is going to fight the battle. And Arjuna has his famous Gandiva, which he has now thrown aside. But that Gandiva, whenever Arjuna fights with it, that Gandiva is just an instrument in the hands of Arjuna, isn't it? The Gandiva does not have thoughts about whether I'm fighting for right, I'm fighting for wrong. Why is that? Because the Gandiva is an insentient object. It is achit vastu. It has no jnana. And because of that, it is able to act perfectly like an instrument of Arjuna. The Gandiva does not feel I'm Swatantra. The Gandiva does not think that, am I doing right by fighting in this battle? But all these things come to Arjuna. Arjuna has questions, Arjuna has confusion. Why? Because he has jnana. Gandiva has no jnana and it has no sense of doership, it has no swatantra. Arjuna, the Jivatma, has jnana, and because of that, he is feeling he is swatantran, and because of that, all confusion and doubts for him. So, what should be the ideal situation? Arjuna, despite having jnana, should be able to act like the Gandiva does. Just as the Gandiva is an instrument in the hands of Arjuna, Arjuna should be willing and should have progress to the level where he is entirely acting as though he has nothing of his own, but he is just an instrument in the hands of Krishna. So that is what Krishna wants Arjuna to come to that level. And that is why now when Arjuna will come to that level, when he is able to give up his sense of doership. So to tell Arjuna that, see, you are thinking you are the doer, but actually it is not you alone who are the doer. That is why Krishna is explaining all this about what should be the spirit with which Arjuna is performing the action. So again and again, Krishna is emphasizing that you are not alone the doer. You can't say that Arjuna is not the doer, because ultimately it is he who is going to pick up the Gandiva and, shoot the arrows which are going to destroy the Kauravas. So he is the doer, but he alone is not the doer. He is one of the components which ensure that that action takes place. The gunas of Arjuna, the Sharira which he has, and the will of the Paramatma, who is inside this Jivatma. Everything is required together for the action. So when somebody starts thinking like this, then gradually they will go and move forward to the stage where they realize that they are not actually solely responsible for any of the actions. They are one of the components, and ultimately it is the Lord within who is motivating for that particular, whose motivation is required for that particular action to take place. So, here the Acharyas explained to us that there is a concept of tyaga. There are 3 tyagas which are required for any action to be a perfect karma. What are those 3 tyagas? The first is kartrutva buddhi tyaga. So in that kartrutva buddhi tyaga, it is giving up, it is sacrificing the thought, the buddhi, that I have ownership of my action. Kartrutva is the sense of doership, the sense of ownership of the action, that I am the one doing the action. So what should be the bhava here? If somebody develops kartrutva buddhi tyagam, what will be their bhava? They will say, the Lord is getting things done through me. They will not say, I am doing this, but they will say, I am an instrument and the Lord is getting it done through me. The second tyaga which is involved is phalatyagam, that you have no desire for a particular phala, for a particular outcome to happen by result of your action. So that is what Krishna has referred to as nirashi, without without asha, without a desire to attain or to achieve a particular outcome. So that is phalatyaga. And the third one is mamata tyaga. So here, when we say use the word mamata, we are not saying it like normally when people say mamata, what they mean? They mean some kind of a motherly affection or emotion, motherly emotion for something. Here, when we say mamata, mama, that feeling that this is mine, that mamata, that thought that this is mine, that has to be given up. So that is what Krishna is saying, nirmamaha, without the thought that this action is mine. So when somebody is able to perform all these three tyagams, then they realize that the Lord is the one who is the doer. I am merely an instrument in the Lord's hands, and I have to do this action not desiring some petty outcome for my own benefit or my pleasure, but for the supreme benefit of seeing the Lord happy by my action. That should be the bhava when we are performing any action. So when we do our actions like that, then the karmas that we are doing don't remain mere karma, they become karma yoga. Now we will move on to the next shloka. In the 31st shloka, Krishna continues and he tells Arjuna, Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante tepi karmabhi. O Arjuna, those who abide, those who follow these teachings of mine with shraddha, with profound faith and free from asuya, free from envy, such persons are released from the bondage of karma. Sorry about that. So, these concepts which Krishna is explaining here, they are the same as whatever, they are the gist of the Upanishads. If you remember, in the initial introduction, I think we talked about this Dhyana Shloka of the Gita, which in that stotra, it is told that Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha Partho Vatsah Sudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gitamritam Mahat. So the Upanishads are the cows, and by milking those cows, what comes, that is what is told in the Gita. So it is the essence of the Upanishads, which the Lord is explaining in the Gita. So Krishna starts telling Arjuna the benefit of following these things which he is telling. So he says that if somebody abides by this teaching means what? If somebody follows these teachings of mine, if somebody practices these teachings of mine, then such a person gets freedom from the bondage of karma. Now, Arjuna may start thinking that it is very difficult to do this abiding by the teachings. Any kind of anushtana. Anushtana is practice of something. Anushtana is sticking to the prescribed practices. So that anushtana is very difficult. It's not so easy because at every stage, our worldly life intrudes. And that is why it is very difficult to practice all these things. Although we may know the theory of them, it is quite difficult to be able to practice them in reality. So, in case Arjuna feels that Anushtana is going to be difficult, Krishna comes one step lower. He says, okay, fine, maybe Anushtana is difficult. But even if you can't practice it, at least you should have faith, you should have Shraddha in this teaching. Even somebody who is not able to practice, but has faith in this teaching, such a person also gets freed from the bondage of karma. Now, in today's Kali Yuga, in today's times, it is often quite difficult for us to even keep that Shraddha. Something goes wrong in our life, something against our wishes happens. So soon we lose our faith and we say, God is troubling us. We say, God is testing us. We say, why God is doing this to me? Isn't it? So even that faith, having the faith, keeping the faith may become difficult for somebody. So Krishna comes even one step lower. And he says, as long as you don't have asuya of Krishna for having advised these things. What is the meaning of having asuya? In many places, the acharyas give a vyakhya that somebody has a particular quality which is good. There are some people who can appreciate that good quality of the other person. There are others who don't appreciate that good quality. Not only do they not appreciate that quality, that same good quality, they find fault with it, right? Like, let us say there is a person who is very generous by nature. So ideally, what we should do, if there is someone who is generous in nature, we should appreciate that generosity of that person. And we should say, see how they are so generous and they are giving to everybody and they are doing dana and all that. But there will be some people who will say, why he is giving away like this? Then the people who are at the receiving end will become lazy. Why he is giving away like this? Who will take care of his family? How he is giving away like this? Maybe he has some other, unaccounted source of income. So like this, when somebody finds a good quality and starts finding fault with that, that is the quality of asuya. So Krishna is telling all this. So somebody who has asuya of Krishna, what they will say, what is this Krishna? What he is telling all this? How it is possible for us to practice all this? Is this really doable? Simply he is telling something. Where is the adhara for all this? Why he is telling all this? So somebody who behaves like that is having asuya of Krishna. So even if you don't have Shraddha, it's okay. But at least you should not have this envious nature. You should not say that what is this nonsense that Krishna is advising. Even if you get to that basic level, the person gets freed from the bondage of karma. Now, why Krishna is advising all this to Arjuna? Because Krishna knows that maybe Arjuna is at the level where he has Shraddha in Krishna's teachings. But not everybody in the world is going to be like that. Now, when we look all around us and we see our own behavior also sometimes, many times situation is that some people, some of us, and some of the times, we are able to practice whatever is taught in the Shastras. There are other times when we may not be able to practice, but we accept that, okay, at this point of time, I'm not able to practice. But yes, what is told in the Shastras is very correct, and we should be practicing that. Now, there will be still some other stages when the tamasic, rajasic quality in us is very high. Then at that time, we will say, what is all this Shastra telling? Is it practical for today's times? Right? So we find people, we find ourselves, and we find people around us in all these three stages. So what Krishna is saying, if you have this quality of being envious, if you have this quality of finding fault with the teachings of Krishna and with the teachings of the Shastras, you are going to be caught up in this karma bandhana forever and ever. You will never escape that. But even if you come to the most basic level, saying that, yes, what is told is correct, you may not have a lot of faith in it, but at least don't negate that. At least don't find fault with what is told in the Shastras. Even if you are at that, neutral kind of stage, you still have hope that you will get freed from the bondage of karma. If you are able to go to the next step, from being neutral and not saying that all this is nonsense, you go to the next stage where you say, yes, it is correct and I have faith, yes, it is correct, but I'm not able to practice. The highest stage is when you say, yes, it is correct and I am going to practice, and you put it into practice. So now for us, if you take and compare these steps what Krishna has told, these categories of people, it is like saying, now suppose there is somebody who is doing anushtana and they are getting freed from karma. And there is somebody who is not doing anushtana, who is simply quietly neutral and just saying nothing, but he is not criticizing the Shastras. Now that person also is getting freed from karma. So it seems very unfair to us, isn't it? It is like saying in an office, if there is some person who is working very hard and that person is earning a particular salary, and there is somebody else who is doing absolutely no work at all, that person is also getting the same salary. Now, won't we say that it is unfair? Of course we will. So here in spiritual world, this thing what Krishna is telling is akin to the same thing, isn't it? So isn't it unfair? But the fact is that we are not the ones who make the rules. Just like in the office, it is the boss who has made the rules. Similarly, in Adhyatma Shastra, it is Lord Krishna who has laid down the rules, right? So it is my smartness. Whatever method he has prescribed, at least one of those, if I can catch hold to that, at least one of those, if I can be the way he has told, I will get his grace. And in reality, if we actually look at it, the Lord is very smart. Why he has made this, right? Because in that state of anasuyatva, having no envy, if we are neutral, there is hope for us because somewhere we are not criticizing the Shastra. We will have at some point of time an interest to learn more about that. When we learn more about that, there will be situations in our life, there will be some teachers who come into our life, and they will help us to learn more. And because of learning more, at some point, we will develop Shraddha. When we develop Shraddha, gradually our situation will become such that we will have the opportunity and we will be interested in actually doing the Anushtana. So, like this, the Lord moves us by His grace. He will move us from the basic level to the higher level. So, if He had to say that, no, no, you have to do Anushtana and only then you are going to get the benefit of the Karma Yoga, how many people are going to take the benefit? Because, as we already said, Anushtana is very difficult. Our practical life, our routine life, our daily worldly matters intrude every time. So we will never get to that stage of doing Anushtana. But even if we are at the level of not rejecting what the Lord has told, then at least we have hope. So that is why Krishna has devised this system where he takes us from the basic level where we are and pulls us up ahead to move towards him, right? So here, to explain this concept, the very great Sri Vaishnava Acharya Parashara Bhattar has given an example. He gives the examples of the gopis. Now, all the gopis in Vrindavan, they wanted Krishna as their husband. Of course, here it is out of our context to discuss about this sambandha between Krishna and gopis. There are a lot of deeper underlying subtle meanings to that. So we will not get into that. But even if we take it at face value, that all the gopis wanted Krishna as their husband, they performed this vrata called as the Katyayani vrata. And what was the purpose of doing that vrata? They wanted Krishna as their husband. Now, many yugas later, in Srivilliputur, Andal was there. We have seen her story during one of our satsangs last time, I think during Navratri. So there we know that this Andal, she wanted Lord Ranganatha of Srirangam to be her husband. And she was bent on having him to marry her. So she thought, like the gopis did the Katyayani Vrata for attaining Krishna as the husband, I will imitate their actions. She took on that bhava of a gopi herself and she collected all her friends and she went about doing the vrata so that she can have Lord Ranganatha as her husband. And that, whatever stotra she composed, that is famous as the Tirupavai. And that Tirupavai is what is recited during, especially, it is recited every day in all the households, but especially during the month of Dhanurmasa, during that Margali month. Every day, all those 30 shlokas are sung by people. Now, why are we singing those songs of Andal? We are reciting that Tirupavai and hoping that we will become one with the Lord, that it will lead us towards the Lord, right? We are not having the sattvic nature of Andal. So we are not thinking that we want the Lord as our husband. But whatever, even if it is for some worldly benefit or anything, we are at least thinking that by reciting this Tirupavai, we are going to get the Lord's grace, isn't it? So, like we said, there is somebody who is doing Anushtana, there is somebody who is having Shraddha in doing the Anushtana, and there is somebody who is not opposing the Anushtana. So, the gopis did the Katyayani Vrata. So, they were at the highest level. Andal imitated their actions. She was also like the gopis. What is our stage today? We have Shraddha. We are reciting the Tirupavai. And yet, just mere recitation. Now, Lord is not asking us that you do the vrata. Just by reciting the Tirupavai, which Andal composed, talking of the gopis and their vrata, we are able to get the benefits. The Lord has promised us that He will rescue us. So, how great is the grace of the Lord on us? We have done nothing to deserve His grace. And yet, if we take just one tiny step, He is there waiting to walk all the remaining steps and come and pick us up, isn't it? So, the Acharyas also tell about this example of Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya, also known as Swami Alavandar, is the Acharya of Swami Ramanuja. So, he was so full of, faith and so much bhakti and all that he had. He composed this very well-known prayer called as the Stotra Ratna. And in that, he prays to the Lord that please give me moksha. At the end, when he comes, see, he is a great bhakta by himself. He has surrendered completely to the Lord. He has given up everything of this world and he is only lost in the Lord's praise, in singing the glories of the Lord. And he is fully eligible on his own merit to get moksha. But when he is singing the Stotra Ratna, he sings that, he says, "Oh Lord, if you look at me, maybe you will not be able to give moksha because I am a pavi, because I am a papi. I have done so much wrong. I am a great aparadhi. So don't look at me and give moksha. But look at my grandfather. Who was the grandfather of Yamunacharya? He was the great saint Nathamuni, the one who got back the lost Divya Prabandhams of the Tamil Alvars. So he says, Alavandar Yamunacharya says, don't look at me and give moksha, O Lord, but you know the greatness of my grandfather. You know the greatness of Nathamuni. And merely because I am in his Vamsha, you grant me moksha. Because I am the grandson of Nathamuni, you grant me moksha. So here again, we are told about how great is the grace of the Lord. That even if I am on my own not doing Anushtana, I am on my own not having lot of Shraddha, but as long as I am not rejecting the Lord, as long as I'm not saying what is this that Lord has taught, if I am in connection, if I am having sambandha of some other bhakta, because of that sambandha, the Lord will grace me. And this is precisely why it is always told that when we do sadhana, when we do adhyatmic sadhana, we should be part of a group of people where there is an unbroken shrinkhala, there is an unbroken chain of the Guru Parampara. Because on my own, I don't know if my efforts will get me moksha, but the Lord has promised that my Guru will get. So if my Guru is going to get moksha, then definitely I will also get. On that faith itself, this entire edifice has been built. So that is why it is important for us to be part of a established Guru Parampara. Right? So what is the message that we can take from all these shlokas that we have seen today and all the points that we have discussed? First, we have to perform all our actions with all the three tyagas. We talked about Kartritva Buddhi Tyaga, right? Then we said Phalat Tyaga and Mamata Tyaga. So with all these three tyagas, we have to perform our action. Then what is the purpose of our action? Out of love for the Lord. Whatever action I'm doing, I want to see the beautiful smile on our face, on the Lord's face. And if really we do like this, even the daily puja that you do, if you do it with love for the Lord, and if you keep looking every day at the face of your Aradhya Devata, you will be able to notice an expression on that Lord's face. So perform all actions with these three tyagas. Then we must understand the importance of whatever Anushtana is told to us. Start small. It may be one small thing, but consistently keep doing that. As we grow, keep doing one small thing consistently, our capability to do more and more will start increasing. As we said, the Lord's grace will start flowing to us. And when the Lord's grace starts flowing to us, nobody in this world can prevent us from going ahead, right? And link ourselves in the chain to get the blessings which are being passed down through our Acharya Parampara. For this, there is a short story that I will tell. I think we have about 7 minutes left. So there is one small story which is told. this person called Dhanurdasa was a very great, he was a disciple who had a lot of faith in Ramanuja. One day, Swami Ramanuja was, during his Kalakshepa, he was explaining about Vibhishana Sharanagati in Ramayana. He was talking about how Vibhishana came from Lanka because Ravana kicked him out, and Vibhishana could not bear to stay with Ravana because he was not listening to good advice. So Vibhishana wanted to be on the side of Dharma. So he crossed over the ocean and he came to seek refuge with Rama. So when Vibhishana came there, Rama was asking the opinion of everybody. So everyone started giving their opinion. There were some people who said he's a bad person, we should not take him. There were some people who said he's, after all, a Rakshasa from that clan. How can a mango tree grow on a mango fruit grow on a neem tree? He's, after all, from the Rakshasa family. You can't take him. Somebody else said, let us see what he is up to. Somebody else said, outright reject him. Somebody said, kill him. Hanuman said, he's a good person, you take him. Right? So when all this discussion was going on, Swami Ramanuja was explaining that all this discussion is going on about accepting Vibhishana. So this Dhanurdasa was listening to this story. And at that point of time, when Swami Ramanuja was describing all this, tears started streaming down the face of Dhanurdasa. And he got up and he started walking away from that place. Ramanujacharya noticed this and he called him back. He said, Dhanurdasa, come here. Why are you going? Where are you going away? And why are you so upset? So Dhanurdasa said, see, Vibhishana, he was such a great Dharmatma. He had always abided by Dharma. In fact, he had taken the boon from Brahma that whatever happens, let me never deviate from the path of Dharma. That was the vara he had taken from Brahma. And all his life, he had lived as a Dharmatma. And for such a person, there is so much discussion going on about whether he should be accepted or not. Now, I am a great papi. Definitely, I am not as big a dharmatma as Vibhishana. I have committed so many sins in my life. So for that dharmatma itself, if there is so much talk and discussion going on about accepting him and not accepting him, then where is what is my plight? Where is any chance for me to get moksha at any point of time? Definitely the Lord will not accept me. That is why I am feeling it is hopeless now. What is the point of being in satsanga? What is the point of doing anything? I will not be accepted. I will not get moksha. That is why I am going away, he said. So then Swami Ramanujacharya asked him. He said, okay, Dhanurdasa, do you believe that I will get moksha? So he said, of course, you are the guru. You will definitely get moksha. Lord himself has promised it to you. So you will definitely get moksha. Hasn't Lord Ranganatha told that you will be given moksha? So then Swami Ramanuja asked him, you know what? When I was a shishya of my guru, I also had the same doubt. And I asked my guru. He told me, my acharya told me that, do you think I will get moksha? If I get, then definitely you will get. So Dhanurdasa, you don't worry. Because my guru is going to get moksha, I will get. And because I am getting moksha, because you are in my sambandha, you will also definitely get moksha. So this is told to emphasize to us that as individuals alone, we have no standing of our own. And we have done numerous papas. We are continuing to do so many papas. We are in no way of any level of purity for the Lord to accept us. We need the active recommendation of somebody else who is a great devotee of the Lord. And that is why we should be under the, Kripa Chaya, under the Kripa Chatra of an Acharya. We should be part of the parampara of the gurus who are there. That is why we must have this Acharya Sambandha. And with that Acharya Sambandha only, we will definitely be guaranteed of being blessed by the Lord. So let us think about all these things. If we don't have Guru Sambandha, whatever is our Sampradaya, I have been born into a particular family. In my family, there will be some Sampradaya which is being followed. There will be some Matadishas. There will be some Acharya whom my family has been following. Maybe over the past years or over one generation or two generations, we have lost touch. But I should find that connection and renew that connection and get back to that connection with my Acharya. That is the guaranteed marga to reach moksha. So when we are doing all these things with bhava that Lord is getting it done through me, then we will be able to progress faster. So that is what we have talked about in today's satsang. Let us pray that Krishna will bless us to be able to think about these things and practice them in our life. So we have come to the end of our time for the satsang today. It is time now to offer Kritagnata, gratitude. Let us offer Kritagnata at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Thank you everybody for joining in. And we will meet again next Thursday as usual. Thank you everyone. Namaskar.